And then she said, oh, camera's on. Okay. With me here, Grandmaster Robert Hess. You know him, doesn't really need an introduction. One of my favorite human beings on the planet, and also an okay chess player. But he just, what happened to you this game? Like, were you really there? I mean, were you like trancing Mikhail Tal or something? I mean, what?
Well, my preparation was studying the old games of Danny Wrench.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so I was looking at all these slaughters.
So
typically, you're in the losing end.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I don't know what you were looking at, but all right. So no, seriously though, Robert just won a very nice game here in this round of the Chess.com Isle of Man, and he is here to give us some of his thoughts for our game of the day. Let's do it, man. Show me. I have not seen the game yet.
0 moves.
I was suggested you got to get Robert in here and go over this game. He had a brilliant game.
So you don't even know what my first move is?
I don't. I literally know nothing. No, this is exciting.
So I went d4, and the reason why I do that is because he's a French player, and I have newfound respect for the French.
Okay. Wow.
No, I just didn't want to play in the French, so I played d4.
Yeah.
He went knight f6.
Okay, he didn't try to trick you into transposing?
I thought he might, but the thing is he's a King's Indian player. So
very nice.
He went g6.
Yeah.
Knight c3, bishop g7. So, I mean, we started off pretty typical, and he went d6. And now I surprised him, and I went f3.
Okay,
so
same-ish.
Typically in the King's Indian, I mean, played knight f3, bishop e2, castles, the sort of standard line. But I saw some games of his. I didn't really look too deeply, but I really liked the positions that White had. So he started off by, well, I don't even remember if he castled or went a6 first, but
either way
it's transposed. Yeah, so
castles,
bishop e3. I went a6. I think he went a6 before castling, but I guess it doesn't matter. Knight e2, knight c6, and queen d2.
And this is Black is preparing for this rook b8, b5 idea on this line. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so he actually went bishop d7, but similar principle.
Right.
And from my point of view, I mean, I go h4, and he actually had a game exactly in this line.
Okay.
And, well, it's time for Black to think.
So what is this opening prep? Maybe if you start winning chess games like this, you should start preparing your openings more often.
Well, I honestly just saw Grandmaster Donchenko beat him in this line.
Okay.
So I was like, I'm going to repeat it.
Yeah, don't fix it if it ain't broke. Right?
And that's the thing. For me, I play so many different openings. It's very hard to prepare for me. My opponent doesn't play that many openings, so it was actually pretty easy to catch him in his typical repertoire, where I just thought of an idea that, well, it worked out perfectly in the game.
Well, all right.
So he went e5 here, because if you don't play e5, I mean, like I said, you can play h5 as Black, but that's always very risky. Because now we're entering sort of a Sicilian type position where I'm not going to go g4 yet, but I always have that opportunity eventually to try to play g4. But more importantly, what's Black's plan? You're going to try to play for b5. But now that I've gotten you to commit on this side of the board, I can make a move like, let's say, knight to c1, and just maneuver my knight away, and I have a huge center and much more space.
So isn't there some idea like where Black is supposed to play for b5 and perhaps like knight a5, especially if you get committed to castling queenside, then he's in like an all-in mode, right, to open up. So you were ready for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if it doesn't really always suit your style to be.
Well, the thing is, you can play, like you said before, like these rook b8, b5 ideas, but I'm not afraid of that. I can always just go rook c1 and not castle.
So your intention at this point, you were still in prep.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, by prep, I really just saw a game that he had played, and I liked the way it looked for White. Yeah. So it wasn't anything too extensive. Most of it I just came up with at the board. So he played e5 because he needs some space. Also, at some point, White really can consider playing d5. The point is, after knight e5, once my knight moves, I protect the pawn on c4, and his pieces aren't exactly on their best square. So now d5. Sometimes you want to play knight d4 and sacrifice the pawn, but here it doesn't work with my knight on e2. So you have a knight a5. And in the game against Donchenko made the move knight to g3. And dual purpose. Protects this pawn and now threatens b4, trapping the knight.
Love it.
And also, of course, going for h5.
Right, makes sense.
But that game got a little bit hectic, where Black went b5. And the point is, you don't actually win a pawn on b5. I do have two pieces attacking it. But the problem is if I go for the pawn, you have this beautiful shot, knight to b3, right?
That's the kind of thing you would miss. Let's just be honest. No, I'm kidding. All right, very nice. Okay. So you're watching out for this trick. So
I was watching out for that trick and understanding that b5 is coming. And I made the move pawn to b3.
Love it.
And I was a bit inspired by Vichy's game. Was it yesterday?
I thought you were going to say one of my games. But once again, disappointed.
No, your inspiration wore off a little bit at this point. It came back to play in a bit. But the real point is, even if I give Black two moves, say b5 and b takes c4,
Yeah.
I'm always going to push b4.
Yeah, that's a great point.
It's sort of thematic, where I force this knight back to b7, and eventually I take the pawn with my bishop, have a semi-open c file, and a weak pawn on c7.
Right. So that's a great point, I think, especially because it allows you to calculate more aggressively when you're not only worried about this move, you're not even worried about the follow-up move, right?
Exactly.
So it really allows you to focus on that. Okay.
And he played b5.
Oh, okay. So.
And I could have played knight g3 first, but then I was anticipating h5, and now I have more work. There's more work to be done. So I said, you know what, h5. Gotta go for it.
Here we go.
And he took this pawn on h5. As mentioned before, pawn takes c4, b4, knight to b7. I mean, my attack sort of just plays itself out. I can just play knight g3, bishop h6.
This is...
it's like a Pierce gone wrong.
Yeah, Fisher had a dream about this one. So, yeah.
And you can't even actually break open the queen side because I could just go b5 myself.
Yeah.
And this is just already terrible for life.
Did you offer a way out? Like you gave him his own way to kind of take his own life or anything? Like, hey, this is going to get bad.
Well, he took. And
probably the right practical decision, honestly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And here's actually something for people watching is it's very tempting to play g4. And of course the idea is if the knight retreats to f6, I just go right forward with the attack and going directly for mate. But sort of thematic is look at this bishop. Of course it's a bad piece right now, but if this pawn magically disappeared, it has the great long diagonal.
Game changer.
And here comes knight f4.
Yeah, and you're right, it's a very instructive thematic thing for, now, King's Indian players may be more familiar, maybe other players aren't, that got to be willing to give up this pawn to open up this bishop here. Yeah, love it.
And sometimes you do it just giving away a pawn. Here you've already stolen my h-pawn.
Right.
And, well, this is already becoming a bit of an issue because if I take here, now pawn to b4 simply wins material.
Yeah.
My rook on a1.
Mm-hmm.
And if I play bishop d4, this is not the way I want to trade bishops.
Right.
Because once you capture on d4 and I take with my queen, your queen is going to come into the e5 square.
You need your queen here. Right.
Exactly. I need my queen delivering checkmate. And now f6 also defends this rank. So that would actually turn the game in black's favor. So
now, since I really don't know what happened, I'm just like, you're playing this up like an artist right now. You have me like on the edge of the seat. You're like giving me little nibbles, but I want the whole thing. So what'd you do?
I'm going to keep it going. So I made what I consider a very good move, rook c1.
Okay.
And now knight f4 isn't threatening. So I get another move. Of course I'm playing g4, inviting this knight to f4. I'll just take all the pieces.
The main thing is you're just eliminating the tactical nuances of this. So okay.
And importantly, my knight's protected. So if I just start putting my queen on,
relieving her duties so she can be more aggressive.
Yeah, eventually my queen may even find its way to the h2 square.
Okay.
And pawn takes c4 again. I just go b4. So he didn't play it, but this knight goes back to b7. I play g4. Eventually, like I said, I can take this pawn back, and I'm delivering just a pretty straightforward mating attack.
You'd be rolling.
Yeah. Everything's going well for me on the king's side. So f5, it's important to note, tends to be a saving grace, right? Because your rook can come to f7 and try to protect the h-pawn, but there's a huge problem. Once I take with the pawn, you want me to have my pawn back on h2.
Yeah, so I can take this way.
Right. Exactly, you can't take now because the knight's hanging, and if you take with a piece, let's say the bishop, well, g4 comes winning a minor.
Yeah. This is getting tough to watch for black.
And here
I feel like you're doing this to me because I'm sitting here.
And you haven't seen the game. So
I'm getting abused, and I'm like, I didn't sign up for this. So.
You're like trying to find a move at all. I mean, b4 doesn't make any sense. I just move my knight away, and I can take this pawn. So you have rook to b8. And
so maybe now there's a threat, right?
Yes. Now there's finally a threat, but I said, okay, let's remove the threat by capturing. Pawn takes, and now I just went g4. And he's already in a world of hurt because if you do this knight f4 stuff, we trade. I take with his bishop, and once again, this piece is protected. My queen can come to h2. So bishop h6, of course, is a threat, but queen h2 as well, just going for a direct mating attack. So maybe he had to do this at this point, and which means that his position is probably objectively, well, if not
losing,
lost,
much worse.
Very terrible.
Yeah.
So he went knight f6, but this is just pretty over.
Submitting to torture.
Yeah. He took, which I thought I was just mating him immediately. He went king h8. So he actually found a way to prolong the game. Knight g3, g5. And if you move the knight away somewhere, you get mated. If you don't do anything, I'm taking your knight.
So he gives up the piece or something?
Yeah, he went knight h5 and takes. Rook takes h5. So rook g7 only move. Because you're getting mated. And here I saw ways to end the game, but I just moved instantly and went rook c2. And maybe that's imprecise. Maybe I should just go knight d1, knight e3,
knight f5.
I mean,
The journey.
You can't really stop.
Yeah.
I thought rook c2, that way if his queen goes to the king side, I'm just, always trying to mate him here. But there's no real moves because queen g8 doesn't actually do anything. Yes, it tries to play rook g6, but for starters, it can play queen f6.
Right.
Just to keep him
frozen.
Totally frozen.
Yeah.
But I also can just, swing here.
And
so that's why I brought the rook up. So here he went king g8, another move I wasn't really expecting.
Change his mind. He's got to run the other way.
Yeah, and I went knight d1. So plan is quite simple. He went c6, and now it's desperation.
Yeah.
And I can just take this pawn on d6 presumably with just a winning advantage. But I said, okay, I'm just going to keep going. You can't even take on d5 because I just take back.
The knight would change his travel plans.
Yes.
Yeah.
If that knight gets there, it's reservation for one for mate town. So queen b6, and I went king e2. And okay, I mean, my king looks a little bit strange in the center, but unless he's getting enough checks in, it's just completely lost. So he went rook a8, and I said, all right, what do I need to do? Now, I realized at this point that knight f5 isn't quite as clear as I want it to be. And the reason why is after bishop takes, pawn takes, now I'm threatening f6, but I realized even if I give white another move, f6, rook g6, king here, take
you're not
here,
actually mating
king
as
f8,
quickly as you'd
there's
like.
no mate.
Yeah, that's frustrating.
And so I was like, okay, well now all of a sudden if black starts getting back in the game, maybe I'm the one who could be in trouble because black's move would have been pawn takes d5. So let's put this pawn here.
Tables turn.
Sometimes this knight can come into the d4 square, and if I'm not mating, then I'm the one who can be in trouble. So I was like, okay, I can't really, shouldn't be losing at something like this, but it's, why get into it? And that was actually a very good realization for me because if I had just stopped thinking and just played, then maybe I would have found myself in a much more difficult situation. So instead I went bishop h3. And again, I knew he was going to try some knight sacrifice. He went knight c4. I was sort of expecting knight to b3, but I figured that after pawn takes rook a1, I mean, it's all desperation. He's trying to
sacrifice on e1 and get a perpetual.
But there are no perpetuals here. And I had worked it all out to the point where I wasn't too concerned. And, the same thing happened in the game, so it doesn't change all that much. He went knight c4. I took. Rook a3. And, all right, it's not too late for me to start making problems for myself. If I start trying to go forward, he'll take my knight, and then he'll gain access to the e3 square, and I'm the one who could be in trouble. So I threw in this nice move, c5.
Oh, very. Look at you intermezzoing son of a...
Son of my parents.
You intermezzoing son of your parents. Yeah. Wow.
Right, it's great. I attack his queen. He's no longer threatening the knight, so he went queen a5. Of course, pawn takes
you just stole his heart out of his chest with that. Just grabbed it.
He didn't seem too thrilled about it, but at this point, he already knew the demise was happening. He could take it, but then I'm simply taking his bishop, and he's down 2 minor pieces. So he kept going for perpetual check ideas with rook takes e3. And I actually sat and thought for a while. I think this is important. I was considering my options. I can play bishop takes d7, but then I thought maybe he gets some sort of perpetual check opportunities, and this bishop is an important defender because after rook takes e3, king takes, queen e1 check, where's my king going? These pieces are no help. This bishop covered the f1 square, which it no longer does, and I was thinking, okay, if I go rook e2, there's
that's
queen
an
g1.
Important first check, right? Yeah, forces the king this way.
And if my king, I thought, okay, now there's all these checks coming my way, maybe even through here, but I probably get out of it. Oh, and this is another problem. Check, and my king is really just in all sorts of. There's checks seemingly forever. Because if I come this way, now he takes this pawn. Yeah. And I wasn't quite sure how my king would survive.
And good technique is about discipline, right? Don't give your opponent these kind of chances.
Right, and that's the exact chance he needed to somehow hold. So instead, I thought I made a very clever move, queen takes d6. And the point is, I'm throwing queen b8 checkmate, back rank checkmate. This is as good as a pawn. It's keeping the king boxed in. Now, he has to go for the same trick, but unfortunately for him, it doesn't pan out because after here, rook e2, you have to check here because if you check this way, my king, there's no more checks. So he went queen g1 check, and now I went king d2. And the point is after queen d4 check.
No more queen takes c5.
If you check back, I just slide the bishop back home.
Oh, you kept him there. Dirty.
Yeah, that's why I kept the bishop there.
Yeah.
And of course, if the queen comes to a1, now my king can just start running to safety over here. I mean, I'm a rook, a full rook.
Okay.
So he got, okay, this is just totally game over at this point. I decided to take on c6. And to add sort of injury to insult, if you take my rook, I have rook g2 check.
You would do such a thing.
Not to mention that I can just take here.
Yep.
And here's how the game finished.
Tell me you sacked your queen.
I just decided to end things. And he resigned after queen e8 check. Of course, the point is now I take this pawn on e5 with check, trading queens and up all the material in the world.
Okay. So he resigned here or after this?
No, he resigned after on queen e8 check and just threw in the towel.
Well, so interesting stuff, right? But a little bit of prep for someone like you goes a long way, because, like you said, you are hard to prepare for, mainly because we all know you have no openings, right? And so, right?
Yeah, no, and I've never.
In your case, there's no point in fixing it at this point. No, I'm kidding because we're friends, but it's become a strength, right? Because I'm sure that a lot of people are like, well, we'll see what Robert cooks up for me, right? Because you don't, in this case, you chose a recent game of his that maybe he hadn't even had time to kind of figure out where it went wrong. Though you did improve over Donchenko or take a slightly different approach.
I just took a different approach. And I think, as you mentioned, on one hand, you want to be very well versed in your openings. Right. But on the other hand, I consider myself difficult to prepare for. So when I do my preparation, I always think, what is my opponent expecting from me?
Right.
And this tournament, when I was playing Blacken's Vichy, I put the French, which nobody can expect because I'm a renowned French hater.
Right. And everyone would expect that you would want to beat the French with e4. And this time, you changed it up.
And I put f3, which I've never done before. So that, at the very least, it's just an opening.
You're like a chess running back. You juke one way and go the other way.
Honestly, I think it's a decent way to put it because it made him in uncomfortable territory. When I played f3, he had a visceral reaction that I saw. He's trying to keep a poker face.
Did he throw up a little bit in the back of his
he
throat?
Just he reacted. And I said, okay, he wasn't expecting f3, which is great. And I just feel like that shifts whatever, the early momentum in my favor. Because he's nervous, I'm just playing chess. Right. And this has happened actually in most of my games this tournament. Against Vichy, I played the French. Of course, he couldn't expect that. Against Wojtaszek, even though I lost that game and played very badly, after the game we were talking, and he goes, well, I wasn't expecting you to play c4 in the first move. I said, that's why I played it.
Yeah.
I knew you wouldn't expect it.
Yeah.
And so against Sumya yesterday, the black pieces, I played e4, c5, and f3, knight f6, which I've never played before. Yeah. And here I played f3 on the fifth move, which I've never played before. So, I really consider just playing chess my strength, openings not so much. So if I can get out of the opening with a decent or good position, then the rest, I think, operates in my favor. So shocked him early and hurt him late.
You make it look easy. That was awesome. Good win, man. Thanks. All right, thanks for doing this.